I'm 28 years old and live in Illinois, a state known for its flat landscape and lack of hiking or camping spots with scenic views. Nevertheless, I decided to try camping in a secluded forest this year. The trail was relatively flat and straightforward, leading to a small pond at the end. It seemed like a perfect starter camping trip, even if the view was underwhelming. After a short hike of under an hour, I set up camp near the pond. The evening soon grew dull, and I found myself bored in the serene forest. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take a walk around the pond to explore the surroundings. The forest seemed peaceful and beautiful, but lacked any defining landmarks, making it seem repetitive. As I made my way back to camp, the sun had mostly set, casting an eerie atmosphere. I started a campfire using a small fire starter and began heating up some food. It was then, after sunset, that I noticed a light emanating from across the pond. At first, I thought it might be a campfire, but as I observed it more closely, I realized it was a mechanical light, like a flashlight. Although the presence of someone else in the forest was unsettling, I reasoned that this was one of the few camping trails in the area, so encountering another camper wasn't entirely improbable. As the night grew darker, the light flickered and eventually vanished, leaving me intrigued and apprehensive. The rest of the night was surprisingly calm, and I managed to sleep without any disturbances. With the sunrise, I decided to go for another walk, hoping to find some answers about the mysterious light. As I ventured to the side of the pond, where the light had originated, I searched the area meticulously. Soon enough, I stumbled upon a hefty flashlight lying in the grass. It seemed relatively new, devoid of scratches or signs of wear. Further exploration revealed nothing else that could explain the light. Puzzled, I decided to leave the flashlight where I found it and return to my campsite. However, my curiosity quickly turned to fear when I noticed two figures standing by my fire pit, in the middle of my camp. They appeared to be adult men. I observed another person emerging from the trees, joining them at the campsite. Frightened, I hesitated to make any noise, opting to silently watch their activities. One of the men suddenly turned and faced the pond, seemingly scanning the tree line where I stood. Our eyes briefly met, sending chills down my spine. He left the campsite and swiftly disappeared into the forest, sprinting in my general direction. Overwhelmed by fear, I ran deeper into the forest, desperate to put as much distance as possible between myself and the strangers. After about 15 minutes of running, I finally stopped and turned in the general direction of my car. Fortunately, I managed to reach it safely, but I had left behind all of my belongings at the campsite. Once I felt secure, I filed a report with the police, hoping for some answers or resolution. Unfortunately, the investigation yielded no significant results. The incident remained a mystery, and I was left to contemplate the strange events that unfolded in the forest that night. The memory of the flashlight and the encounter with the mysterious individuals haunted me, leaving me with more questions than answers. To this day, I often think back to that unsettling experience and wonder what the intentions of those strangers were. It serves as a reminder of the potential dangers that can lurk in isolated places, even in areas that may seem safe. The incident has made me more cautious and aware of my surroundings, instilling a sense of vigilance whenever I venture into unfamiliar territories. While I may never know the full truth behind that night in the forest, it has taught me the importance of personal safety and the unpredictability of the world we live in. It serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most idyllic locations can harbor hidden dangers, and it is crucial to trust our instincts and take precautions to ensure our well-being. In the end, I have chosen to steer clear of isolated camping spots, opting for locations with more visibility and security. The memory of that eerie night continues to influence my choices, serving as a reminder of the delicate balance between adventure and personal safety. Last year, something happened during my camping trip that I had never experienced before. As someone who frequently went camping alone, I had visited various spots over the years. But this time, I decided to venture onto a new trail called the 4-Mile Camping Trail. I embarked on a 2-hour drive from my house to a remote location where the trail began. From the start, I realized that this trail wasn't as enjoyable as I had anticipated. Parts of it were wet and muddy, which dampened my spirits. Nevertheless, I persisted, trying to navigate around those areas. About 45 minutes into the hike, I noticed something off the side of the trail, a worn-down tent with a few rips. Curiosity piqued. I approached the tent since no one seemed to be inside. It appeared weathered and old, but I couldn't find any signs of intentional damage. Surprisingly, there was nothing else inside or around the tent. After spending a few minutes inspecting the tent, I returned to the trail, unable to come up with a satisfactory explanation for why someone would leave it behind. However, as I continued for the next hour and a half, I stumbled upon several discarded camping and hiking equipment strewn along the trail. It became apparent that all these items had been deliberately abandoned, presumably by a single person. Upon reaching the end of the trail, I decided to set up my own tent a good distance away, prioritizing my safety. As night fell, I felt a slight unease, but managed to sleep through the night without any issues. The following morning, as the sun was just beginning to rise, I unzipped my tent and stepped out, only to be greeted by a chilling realization. There was a man standing on the other side of my tent, mere feet away. He was tall, thin, and clad in dirty, disheveled clothing. His face was covered in grime, and his vacant stare sent shivers down my spine. Frozen in shock and fear, I could barely respond as he spoke to me in a soft, unsettling tone. He repeated one word: "Leave." Understanding the urgency in his voice, I nodded and hastily gathered my backpack. But before I could escape, the man rushed toward me, causing me to stumble backward in panic. In my frightened state, all I could manage was to repeat "okay" repeatedly. The man loomed over me, still wearing that vacant expression. He uttered the word "leave" once more, and this time, I comprehended his intent. I quickly got up and fled, leaving everything behind. I stole a glance back as I distanced myself from the scene, and I watched the man rummage through my backpack with a curious, animalistic demeanor. I jogged as far as I could, then briskly walked the rest of the way to my car. Thankfully, I had kept my phone and keys in my pocket, avoiding a potentially more dire situation. As soon as I had phone reception, I dialed 911 to report the incident. To my surprise, I discovered that there had been a similar case reported previously, but the victim had chosen to keep it and disclosed to the media. It was likely the person whose tent and belongings I had discovered along the trail. After a week of cooperating with the police and providing them with all the necessary information, a small search party was organized. The officers ventured down the trail, but returned without any sightings or evidence of the man. However, they did find most of my belongings tossed around near my campsite, as if they were discarded like trash. Despite their efforts, the case eventually went cold, similar to the previous one. The aspect that continues to haunt me is how the man didn't keep any of the items he had scattered. There seemed to be no intention to use or possess them, only to scatter them haphazardly throughout the forest. To this day, I often reflect on that unsettling encounter. The mystery of the abandoned tent and the strange behavior of the man remain unsolved. It serves as a stark reminder of the inherent risks and unknown dangers that can exist even in seemingly serene environments. The incident has made me more cautious and aware during my camping trips. I now take extra precautions, such as informing someone about my whereabouts and choosing more populated camping areas. It's a sobering reminder that we must always prioritize our safety and trust our instincts when exploring unfamiliar places. While I may never uncover the true motives behind the man's actions, I'm grateful that I escaped unharmed. The memory serves as a constant reminder that even in the beauty of nature, there can be hidden threats. It has instilled in me a profound appreciation for personal safety and the importance of being vigilant when venturing into the great outdoors. Back in high school, my house had a huge backyard that was connected to a large forest. It was the perfect setting for adventurous kids like me and my friends. We used to spend countless hours playing games and exploring deep into the woods. There was always a sense of excitement and a hint of danger that made our escapades even more thrilling. However, as we grew older, we gradually stopped venturing into the woods. It seemed pointless amidst the responsibilities and distractions of teenage life. But one day, everything changed when my buddy Tyler and I were lazily lounging on the couch, reminiscing about the good old days. Out of nowhere, Tyler proposed the idea of venturing into the woods again, but this time, during the late hours of the night. The idea intrigued us, and within minutes, it evolved from a simple walk in the woods to a full-blown camping expedition. Tyler mentioned that his parents had a tent we could borrow, so we quickly walked down the street and retrieved it from his garage. Neither of us had any camping experience, but we brushed off any concerns, convinced that it would be a one-night adventure. Armed with snacks, water bottles, and a portable phone charger, we stepped into the mysterious depths of the forest. Almost immediately, we realized that Tyler's flashlight was inadequate. It barely illuminated a few feet ahead, limiting our visibility in the darkness. Nonetheless, we trudged on, our conversations transitioning from excitement to an eerie silence. Every now and then, we thought we heard faint sounds in the distance, but the feeble flashlight failed to reveal their source. After 30 minutes of walking, we stumbled upon a clearing and open grassy area encircled by towering trees. Tyler ingeniously wedged the flashlight on top of a bush, casting a meager glow around us. With much struggle and frustration, we managed to assemble the tent, but each time we heard a suspicious sound. We had to retrieve the flashlight, disrupting our progress. At that moment, regret began to seep into my thoughts. The thrill of being in the woods at night had diminished, replaced by a growing unease. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we succeeded in erecting the tent. We huddled inside, enveloped by the symphony of nocturnal forest sounds. The silence was intermittently broken by the familiar sound of footsteps echoing through the trees. We strained our ears, convinced that it was the footsteps of another person, not an animal. The footsteps meandered around, not getting any closer, but passing by like a spectre in the night. The tension inside the tent was palpable as we listened intently. After a nerve-wracking minute, the footsteps receded into silence, and we cautiously emerged from our temporary sanctuary. Feeling exposed and vulnerable inside the tent, we opted to sit outside instead. As we engaged in conversation, the enigmatic footsteps resurfaced in the distance, growing steadily closer this time. Fear gripped us as the footsteps approached, and Tyler aimed the flashlight in their direction. However, just as we anticipated the light to reveal the intruder, they abruptly halted, shrouded in darkness just beyond our line of sight. We strained our ears, barely catching their breaths before they took a single step backward and retreated into the night. We stood frozen, fixated on the void beyond the flashlight's beam. Minutes later, the footsteps faded away, leaving the woods in absolute silence once again. We wasted no time dismantling the tent, propelled by a mixture of fear and adrenaline. Our navigation skills abandoned us, leading us straight onto a neighboring street instead of the path home. Eventually, we reached my house, seeking solace in the safety of four walls. Throughout the sleepless night, we dissect terrifying encounter, contemplating what could have transpired if we had come face to face with the mysterious intruder. The incident left us shaken to the core, and from that point onward, we vowed to stay away from isolated areas. To this day, I maintain a safe distance from places that exude a sense of isolation. The person we encountered in the woods that night remains a haunting enigma, their intentions concealed in the darkness. We were fortunate enough to escape any potential harm, but the incident serves as a constant reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the shadows. The experience taught us the importance of caution and the unpredictability of the world around us. It reinforced the notion that venturing into unfamiliar territory, especially at odd hours, can expose us to unforeseen risks. Sometimes, it is wiser to appreciate the memories we've made in the past than to recklessly seek to relive them in the present. As time goes on, the story of that fateful night in the woods becomes a cautionary tale shared amongst friends. It serves as a reminder that our curiosity should always be tempered by prudence, ensuring our safety in the face of the unknown.